Hi, everybody. Welcome to the OnStage Blog Theater podcast. And today it's going to be a lot of fun. We have just kind of evolved as a podcast, and we never have really done a true introduction to the hosts, a kind of episode. And so we thought that this would be a fun way to kind of talk about our tastes, talk about what we like, and for all of you listeners to get to know us a little bit better. And it'd be just a fun little episode. And I am theater critic Rachel Wagner, and Jacklyn Collier is here.
Hi, Rachel. I'm so excited that we're getting to do this today.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And who knows, we could end up learning something about each other because we've known each other for so long, but you can always learn more about friends, right?
I do find it very interesting that even when you're so close with someone like we are, you've known them for a while, actually asking these direct questions, they also make you think about yourself and what your own answers are.
Yeah.
So it's
That's true.
this interesting thing.
And there's things that you kind of forget to even ask about each other, I've had where people are like, well, do you know this about do you know their favorite color? Do you know their favorite food? I'm like, I have no idea.
And I'm like, do I even know my own favorite color and favorite food? I know things I like, but wow, okay.
Yeah. So we have some questions, and I will try to have them put these questions in the description so that if other people want to share their answers in the comments or make their own videos or whatever, that would be fun. I was kind of thinking this as it used to be a thing a couple of years ago on YouTube where they would do what they call tags.
Yes.
And they were like a set of questions, and there would be all kinds. There'd be the box office tag or the Disney tag or the whatever. So I was kind of thinking this is sort of the Broadway tag.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So if people want to do the Broadway tag, you're tagged. We officially tag you. But yeah, I thought it would be fun to just start out just like base introductions and sort of explaining what brought you to this podcast, because you come at it from an angle of performing and teaching, and whereas I come up from a different angle. So what's your backstory that brought you to the OnStage Black Theater podcast?
Well, the number one thing that brought me to the podcast is you. But I think that the evolution of it is very interesting because we originally connected over Hallmark, which is still great, an area of interest to both of us. But then getting to know you even better and becoming such close friends and being like, oh, you're a theater girl too? Oh my gosh. Okay, great.
Yeah.
And realizing that we also had this shared passion is really exciting. And, you and I have had so many fun podcast endeavors together. And, I would pretty much talk about anything to hang out with you, but getting to talk about theater is really, really great. And it is fun to get to, looking at this from the perspective of, yes, as a performer and as a teacher, and some of the shows I've been in or some of the shows I've coached kids for, but I'm also just a lover of theater. But different to you, I'm not a critic. So I'm almost approaching it sometimes from a place of fandom rather than a critical analysis, unless it's something I've worked on and then I had that critical analysis. So it's interesting to get to talk about this with you and get to approach it from a place of critical analysis that I may have not approached it from before.
Well, what's interesting for me is that, so I started out as, of course, as a film critic and podcaster, but really was just a theater patron, and I never really thought about any kind of theater criticism or that kind of analysis. Whereas film criticism, I had always been a huge fan of, and I had always done my own sort of film writing, and just always loved the analysis of film. And I never really thought about theater in that same way as much, for whatever reason, I don't know. So it's interesting to see how that has evolved, because I always say, as a freelancer, I find a way of making everything my job. Like if it's not part of my job, I find a way to make it part of my job. And that's very true. So, I after the pandemic, I'd been a theater patron my whole life. I'd always loved it, but it was more a couple times a month, maybe even a couple times a semester. Not like the anything close to like what I'm doing now, but I'd always loved it, and I, of course, love Les Mis, and I love those things. But uh, but after the pandemic, I was just so horrified by the fact that the theaters were closed for such a long time, and that was something that I just never thought. It never even occurred to me that that could happen. Like I remember even the movie theaters when they said, "Oh, we're going to be closed for 2 weeks." I was like, "Yeah, right. 2 weeks? What?" That just seemed crazy to me at the time. And it was an interesting time. So, who's to say what was the right decision in those times? But anyway, it was just something that I never imagined could happen, and I was horrified and by it. And I just said after, I was like, I am going to do whatever I can to support community theater when this is over, because this is not going down on my watch. So I felt.
Not on my watch.
No. And it was all such kismet because Les Mis is my favorite show, and it's been very influential. And so I got my vaccination, and then 2 weeks later, which is what they recommended at the time, I waited the 2 weeks, and I the first show that I saw going back was Les Mis at Hale Center Theater in Sandy, and I just thought that was so crazy, that my show, like the show that was most influential in my life, that would be the one I'd go back to. Is really cool. And so I just started going to at least 2 shows a week, and finding all these small little theaters. And so then I was like, again, because I have to make everything part of my job, I was like, well, let's start writing. So I started writing about what I was seeing because I wanted to promote it, and and then I found out about Utah Theater Bloggers, and they were kind enough to give me a chance, and I wrote for them, and that sort of started me on the path of being a critic. And so it's kind of, I don't know how other critics are as far as theater critics, but like for me, it really came out of a desire to be an advocate, not to
Yeah.
be a critic. Like I wanted to promote these companies as much as I possibly could. And my hope, even with film reviews, my hope is to write in a way that is respectful and kind. I just posted a pretty strong review about Mrs. Doubtfire. But even in that, I hope that somebody can read it and be like, you know what, this might be my thing. I want to capture the experience, capture what it's like, and then hopefully people can decide, whether it's something they want to participate in. But I do look at it as I'm an advocate. I'm and a patron almost more than a critic, which is sort of interesting.
Well, I definitely think that the best critical analysis and the critical analysis that I take the most seriously or value the most comes from people that have a love of it to begin with.
Yeah.
Um, I think in that case, for me, it's just coming from a pure place. And Rachel, what you were saying about when the theaters were shut down, it was just so hard to fathom because even with 9/11, which I know was a very different situation than the pandemic, but the theaters were back up and running.
Yeah,
It
that's true, because like film and theater had always been my coping mechanism. So
exactly.
you take that away, and they took away church at that time as well, because
Yeah.
I would, and so like all my normal sort of coping mechanisms were gone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a really terrifying thing to be like, okay, where people gather,
yeah,
like church, and like exactly your coping mechanisms. It's like, okay, I guess I'll watch church on TV. I guess I'll watch them. Like
yeah,
those things that just aren't. It's not the same as being gathered in a room with people.
yeah, yeah, and it. it just, I don't know, there was just something about like, wow, anything can truly get taken from you.
Yeah.
That was really scary. I think that was the scariest part of it all, is that there was just no security.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's wild to think about that happening in a time with less technology, because I can't imagine what it would have been like not to be able to connect with people
Yeah.
through a screen.
Yeah.
Like that was
Oh,
a
I know. Yeah, if I hadn't had the podcast, oh my gosh. But I guess in a sense it was also, that was became my coping mechanism, was the
yeah,
podcast. Yeah.
yeah,
And so I, as part of my whole quest to promote local community theater, I started Theater Tuesday over on my channel. And the idea was is that sometimes it would be podcasts, sometimes it would be edited videos, like top 10 lists, things like that. Sometimes it would be interviews. And I did that for a while, and I had Chris on, and we became friends, and that's, you know, kind of how this all evolved, and it was so exciting and fun, and then to be able to bring you on board was just ideal. And so that's how this kind of got started. But
yeah.
yeah.
This has been so much fun getting to, well, even getting to see shows with you in person, and now knowing that I'm coming to Utah, we're going to see even more in person, and even the Jane Eyre live stream. That was so fun to be like, okay, we're in different places, but we can
Yeah,
watch the show together.
that was really, really fun. And I hope that people do more of those, because I wouldn't that be fun? I would love if like once a month we had the like on stage like the podcast live stream reaction. Like that would be a blast.
That would be, I really, really hope they do it, and I know it probably takes a lot of time and
Yeah.
energy and money to make it happen in the way that they did, because it was really gorgeous, like, they did a fantastic job, but please
Yeah.
give them what they want.
Yeah. It was really fun. Well, the next question I wanted to talk about is, what is your early theater influences or memories?
Oh, okay, so my early theater influences and memories, it being, really, really little, and, like, probably 3 or 4, and, singing all the songs from Annie and wanting to be Annie and
Mm.
just being obsessed with Annie, and then that morphing into when I started to take voice lessons, I was probably 10 or 11, being a 10 and 11-year-old who had no business singing "I Dreamed a Dreamin' on my own," but just, like, trying my darndest. I guess I didn't wanna do a castle on a cloud, I was just like, "Okay, let me just go for these."
Yeah.
So much like you with Les Mis, it's like Annie and Les Mis are this sort of bedrock of my young theater memories. And then as I got a little bit older, I've never seen it on stage, but I got really obsessed with Rent, and I thought I was so edgy. And I remember like
Oh yeah.
525,000. And I was like, oh, I know this musical that nobody else knows. I was from a small town, and I didn't.
Uh-huh.
I went to like a theater camp in a town a few towns over, which was not like a big city. But I remember coming back and being like, "Oh yeah, like I know things now," kind of.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was yours?
Well, mine, the first, I do remember going to the Shakespeare Festival with my dad. And that was very down in Cedar City, Utah Shakespeare Festival, and that was very influential. I also remember going to see. I took dance. Can you believe that? I'm the worst dancer. But I had a dance teacher who was anybody's in West Side Story. So that was an early one that I saw. And then as far as Broadway-esque type productions, my grandma was really my gateway to, she could afford it, and she liked having me go with her, and she knew I liked it, and so she was very influential. She's one of my best friends, and she gave me the best of Andrew Lloyd Webber cassette tape, probably 9, something like that, 9, 10. Yes. And I of course listened to it nonstop. And then she took me to see Phantom. That was the first, like, this was in San Francisco, but it was the first Broadway, style show that I'd ever seen, and of course blew my mind. And then Les Mis, was my obsession in high school. I mean, I literally knew every line to every song, and that 10th anniversary concert was unbelievable. And every time it would come on PBS, I'm like, record, 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 record.
Also, that's no reason you need to know every lyric to every song because that is a 3-hour show that is all singing.
Yeah, I mean, I joke, but if they had needed a swing for any role at any time, I was ready.
Okay, who would have been your dream to swing in for?
Oh, definitely. I mean, not that I had the talent, I absolutely did not, but it would have definitely been Eponine for sure.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So but yeah, and that was the first show I ever actually saw on Broadway in New York.
Oh
So
wow, the fact that it was the first show you saw on Broadway in New York, and then was the first show after the pandemic. Like
yeah.
that's just so you're right, that's this
Yeah.
full circle
Yeah,
moment.
it really was such kismet. And we had I was there with my choir group. We were up there for a competition of some kind, and we got to pick. You could pick between Cats or Les Mis. And of course, Les Mis. And I'm so excited because we had Tony on the podcast, and I'm seeing her. I just bought my ticket to see her staging of Cats next month. So
Oh, I
really
bet that's gonna
excited.
be great.
Yeah, it's
She
gonna be.
was a gosh darn delight. I love
Yeah,
her.
she's so fun. So yeah, those are definitely some of my early memories. And also being in shows in high school. It's the only time I've ever done any plays or musicals, because I'm the worst dancer in the world. But being it was a very white version of The Wiz. You'd never do that now, but it was fun. We had a great time. So I was in The Wiz, I was in Barbara Birdie, and so that was, and then some plays, but that was really fun too.
I love picturing them being like, let's do the Wiz, the music is better. And it's like, yeah, and then the Wizard, I get it.
Right,
I
right,
get it. Like now we wouldn't,
right.
but
It was a
it
different time.
was a different time. I have photos that have now been wiped from the internet of when I was in summer stock and we did the Mikado and we all were dressed up for the Mikado, and it just doesn't feel right looking at those photos now.
Right.
It just
Yeah.
feels
Yeah.
inappropriate.
Yeah. All right. So I kind of answered this one, but what's the first Broadway show you ever saw?
So, like you, when I was seeing like the Broadway national tours, I saw Annie and Carousel pretty close together when I was young, but it wasn't until I was 17 that I actually went to New York and saw Wicked. And that was like, oh my gosh. And these two women are the leads, and it's so exciting. And I went with my friends, and it was really amazing to be like, okay, I'm seeing this show on Broadway. Like I've seen Broadway shows before, but not on Broadway. So that was
Mhm.
really, really
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the first Broadway show you're obsessed with? So that would be Annie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was definitely Annie. And that's what was interesting when we did the Matilda Annie episode. And I've been reflecting on that since because there's so much about Matilda that I really, really like, but I think it's so hard when you're comparing the two because there's just all the nostalgia of Annie and getting to see a little girl lead a show. And Rachel, do you remember they did like the nationwide search on like 2020 to find the Annie for the Broadway production? Like
No, I didn't. I forgot that.
so there ended up being some drama with it. Like they ended up replacing her. It was a whole thing. Like kind of a stage mom. I shouldn't be saying this because who knows actually what the real story was, but I remember watching that and just being like, okay, I'm just so
Someday. Yeah.
yeah, someday,
Yeah.
someday. Yeah. So
Nice.
that was definitely my first big obsession.
Yeah.
What I know you said Les Mis for you, but what was the obsession that you had?
Well, yeah, so Les Mis, trying to think of other ones. Um that were early on. Um, well, well, it kind of will, I'll answer that in the next question. So this is, what is a particularly memorable Broadway trip that you've taken? And so I would say, and I've talked about it a number of times on this podcast, that this trip that I took in 2000 with my grandma and my cousin, and and we went and saw the Radio the Rockettes, the spectacular Christmas whatever they call it. It's unbelievable. And then we saw Music Man with Rebecca Luker and Craig Berko. So I've always loved Music Man, and we saw Beauty and the Beast, and I've always, really loved that. And so those three shows, I don't know if I would say I'm obsessed with any of them, but they all are very nostalgic for me.
Yeah, they like hit you right in the feels.
Yeah.
I think there is something about, especially when we're younger and we're like forming our sense of identity. I mean, I guess we're always forming our sense of identity, but these songs just hit in a different way because it's the first time we felt all these feelings. Like I remember watching Carousel and the song You'll Never Walk Alone. I was like, oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Musical theater can be more than just happy, happy fun. It can make me feel wrecked emotionally, like in a good way.
Yeah, I mean, I was also obsessed with The Little Mermaid, but just the movie, not the stage. So, but there's that too. But yeah, it does become a part of you, especially those anthem songs, and everything.
Yeah, they feel like they're your anthem.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. Well, so what about you? What a particularly memorable Broadway trip for you? That Wicked one?
I think definitely Wicked, but I think the other one that felt memorable to me because I sort of felt like I was a grown up was I'd come to New York like during my senior year of college to audition for grad schools, and I went to Spring Awakening, and I remember I had a flip phone. Yeah, I had a flip phone, and Jonathan Groff came out after and was so nice. And this is when he wasn't out yet, and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to marry him. He's so adorable. And he took a picture with me that I had on my flip phone, and he was like holding my face, like, how did I not know that this beautiful man who was so sweet was gay? Like that should have been a sign, but it was so sweet. And then I remember he walked down the street, like after he was done, I was like, where's his limo? Like what? Like this is way before Jonathan Groff was, I mean, he was doing really well, but it's like I had this in my head that every Broadway person who was coming out from their show would take a limo home. Like, what is like? How did I think that? And like, it just, and I just saw him with his backpack just go into the subway.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, we think they're all like Lin-Manuel.
100%. And like, it's funny because this is when Jonathan Groff was like a kid, pretty much. So it's different even than it would be now that he was doing that. So it just made me laugh.
Well, so the next question is, what are the Broadway shows that we've seen together? And there's two. Yeah. So we saw Funny Girl, and we saw it during previews. So we saw Beanie Feldstein in the lead, and we didn't have anything else to compare it to. I thought she did great. I didn't have any problem with her performance. It's not like my favorite show in the world, but it's got those iconic songs, and we both had a good time.
Yeah. The thing is, like, I really thought that Beanie nailed the acting. Like the singing was not Barbra Streisand, and I'm sure not Leah Michelle or like any, like I was like, oh, she brought something that was really unique to the role. And I like you said, we had a really good time because we saw it very early on. And it is hard, Rachel, not to be influenced by things that you hear. At least it's hard for me. I think I form my own opinions, but you do go into it thinking a certain thing.
Yeah.
You had the benefit of not having that.
Yeah. And I mean, I thought she was fine. There were some of as far as the singing, there were some of the like longer notes that maybe weren't perfect, but yeah, my main flaw coming out of it was I thought that she wasn't costumed well. That you could tell it was somebody who was not very experienced in dressing a plus size costuming a plus size actress, because they just all were very like loose and flowing, and like I just didn't like the way that they costumed her.
Yeah, which is so wild because it's like she's a big star name. Like it's kind of wild that, but I've heard that happen with other shows. Like one of my friends who was in Lion King was saying how, you know, they should know they're working with Black women in that show, but there were all sorts of things with like hair and putting the hair underneath the like lion apparatus and all these things that you're like, that's why it's so important to have makeup artists, to have costumers, to have people who are doing the wigs, who are used to working with plus size women, Black women, to have a diversity of representation both on stage and in the offstage roles too.
Yeah. So then the other show that we have seen together, it's so random. We saw Back to the Future, the musical together. And we both enjoyed that as well. I mean, that it's an interesting one because I do think that that is a musical that really does depend on how much you enjoy that movie, because it's basically shot for shot. Like there's hardly anything that's not in the movie. And the songs, I couldn't tell you a single song. Like the songs are totally forgettable, but it had, like, because I do love the movie, and so it hit those nostalgia beats, and it had such a spectacle to it that we had a good time.
Yeah, and yeah, the look and feel of it was like, yeah, this is Back to the Future. We are living by Back to the Future. Yeah. Something that you noted to me when we were seeing the show, and I was like, oh yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I thought the whole cast was fantastic, but it was interesting because the guy who was playing Marty was, in a very authentic way that was still his own, doing a little bit of like a Michael J. Fox voice impression. Yeah. Yet Roger Bart, who was doing Doc, was kind of doing his own thing, which was fine too, but it was an interesting sort of juxtaposition.
Well, just because everything else was so samey, that like his performance being kind of different was it stood out.
Yeah. And I'm not sure how it wasn't an absolute slam dunk for me, but I mean, obviously he's a very talented actor and does so much. But I agree with you. Like the whole feel of the production was just an absolute blast. We had so much fun.
Yeah. All right. Next question. What is your favorite classic musical? So I would say like classic pre like 1980.
I think my favorite classic musical is Gypsy. Is that pre 1980?
I think so.
I think it is.
Sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I just think it is I'm so excited for the revival.
Yeah.
One of my little girls that I coach has a callback today for baby June. So and she gets it.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. But I think it lends itself so perfectly to a musical, like even the convention of it, it's a performative, like the meta of it all, I think is really, really great. So to me, that's probably my favorite classical one.
I've never seen that. I would like to. I've seen the movie, but I've never seen it on stage. So one of these days. My favorite, I mean, it's gotta be The Music Man. I mean, it's just great songs. I like the story of redemption, and also just has that nostalgia element for me. Yeah, it's gonna be. Okay, what is your favorite modern musical?
This is really tricky. This is very, very tricky. I would say that my favorite modern musical is probably I'm just laughing because I'm between two and they're both kind of I'll just say them both. So not a favorite of yours, but Into the Woods, I really, really enjoy. And then it's top of mind because I saw it last night and I was like, this is so amazing. The Notebook was so great, Rachel.
Really? All-timer good, huh?
I am someone who kind of like goes with how I'm feeling at the moment.
Okay.
I was like completely, maybe because I had low expectations, but I was like completely astounded by some of the performances. And I thought that it was beautifully, beautifully orchestrated. And then I guess finally I really like Jagged Little Pill, but they're all so different that it's hard to be like, oh, that's my ultimate one.
Yeah, yeah.
What's yours? I know it's not Into the Woods.
It's definitely not Into the Woods. I would well, I mean, it's Les Mis is my favorite, and then Bright Star would be my second favorite. Yeah, I just love it so much, and we'll talk about more about that. Right, but yeah, I mean, I think to me, like when you're talking like top tier entertainment, is something that makes you laugh, it makes you cry, it makes you inspires you. It has romance, and Les Mis has all of that. It's got your inspiration. It's one more day, like anthems that get you inspired. It's got your forgiveness and hope and all these great themes, but it's also got it's got your comic relief in the Thénardiers and some of the other things, and it's got your romance. It's got it all.
Well, and there isn't, it's so I hadn't seen Les Mis in a while and I saw it about a week ago. And it's like every song is like every single song, pretty
Yeah.
much, I would say with the exception of two or three, are good enough to be the best song in any other musical.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, the weakest songs, in my opinion, are Cosette songs, and they're not like they're fine. Heartful love, and it's just not my favorite, but like it's like perfectly serviceable little romantic song. Yeah. So
You know what's funny? I agree. And Heartful of Love always reminds me, and Cosette reminds me a little bit too of Joanna in Sweeney Todd. And when she sings Greenfinch and Linnet Bird, and when Cosette sings Heartful of Love, I'm like, oh, this is good. They're beautiful. They have beautiful voices, but let me get to the songs that I really like, kind of.
yeah. So next question, was your favorite play non-Shakespeare?
So I have two. And it's just so hard for me to pick. It's so hard for me to pick. But I would say that it's The Seagull, which I know is kind of like a classical play, but I just really, really love it. And The Wolves, which have you seen?
I remember
It's
you talking
yeah,
about that. Yeah.
I love it. I think it is so unique. Like, what other play do you have nine teenage girls that they're playing soccer, but it's I mean, and it is just so beautifully staged. I've never seen it in person. I think I was talking about it with the pro shot. I've seen the pro shot, and it's just, what you're talking about, making you laugh, making you cry. It's a beautiful, intimate show that I thought was completely unique to anything I'd ever seen on stage.
Yeah. Well,
What
the two that I think of is I've loved almost any version of Pride and Prejudice. Of course, I love the novel that I've ever seen, but particularly a friend of mine, but a very talented playwright, Melissa Leone Larson. She has an adaptation that is so good that if anybody ever gets a chance to do it, it's really great. So I love that. But then also I really, probably my favorite was probably The Normal Heart.
Oh,
I I
yeah.
I saw this at a now defunct theater company, Provo, a couple of years ago. It was during Pride Month. It was incredibly moving, and what I found very refreshing about the play is that it's pretty honest and raw. Like, that has a pretty unlikable lead protagonist, and considering he was writing about himself and to portray himself that way, like he's I just was it's not preachy or propagandish at all. Like, this is an honest, real uh person that we're watching, him trying to make this difference, but like having this conflict with the gay community at the time and with the other leaders, and literally being ousted out of
Yeah.
his own movement that he had created. And so I thought it was a very good play, and then it was very special at the end, this particular production, the cast gathered and sang Homeward Bound, the Irish folk tune,
Oh, wow.
together, and we were all just like crying. And it was a very, very small production. In fact, they had the audience's seats were on the stage with the
Oh,
actors, and so it was very
oh, that's
cool.
beautiful.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, and everything you said too about like the exploration of a protagonist that isn't just like all good. Like I think
Yeah,
that the complexities of that are what makes theater so great.
yeah, yeah. I feel like we're so scared these days often of people taking the wrong message, that it's like we got to make sure that the message is there, right? And that it's obvious, and that it's kind of that I don't know. I just feel like, would people be brave enough to write a play like The Normal Heart
Mhm.
now? Would they do that now? I don't know. But I'm certainly, glad we have it. And
I've read it, but I've never seen it on stage. I would love
Larry
to.
Kramer. Larry Kramer it's a great play. And if you ever get a chance to see it, it's really special. So that would be. And what's your favorite Shakespeare?
Oh, again, I have to do two. Well, I think I said three in our last. I'll narrow it down. Uh, As You Like It in Macbeth. What about you?
I would say Much Ado About Nothing and Macbeth. Yeah, they're my favorites. 12th Night.
We could
um,
just good Macbeth together.
yeah, that would be
The
fun. That would
Yeah,
be
I think
really
12th
fun.
Night is really good too. Um,
Yeah.
have you never seen Sleep No More, have you?
No.
It is like based on Macbeth and based on Rebecca, but I have a hard time seeing that the there's just so much going on that you don't get the
Oh,
whole.
that's a lot, Rebecca N. Huh.
I know,
Interesting.
yeah, and you cannot get like people have gone 50 times and still haven't seen everything, which is
Oh, wow.
thing, but
Yeah.
like last time I went, I missed a lot.
Yeah. Well, the last question in this part of it is what is a Broadway song you can really nail and sing well?
Um,
If you're
I would
at Broadway karaoke, what are you picking?
Broadway karaoke. Um, I would say Adelaide's Lament from Guys and
Oh,
Dolls.
that's a good one. Yeah, good
About
choice.
you?
Yeah. It's got to be Favorite Things from
Oh
Sound of
yeah,
Music. Yeah. Which would also be a musical I was obsessed with, but more the movie,
yeah,
not as much the stage.
yeah.
All right. So now we're going to talk about, for a few minutes, we're going to talk about overrated and underrated. We're talking about overrated and underrated. And I've already talked quite a bit about underrated. We did a whole episode with Chris. So you can hear more of my thoughts, but I'll just say quickly some shows I think are underrated. I think Bandstand, I recently saw that and I just loved it. Catch Me If You Can, Bright Star, Singing in the Rain, School of Rock, Tick Tick Boom, and A Christmas Story. I would say all those I think are some really good songs, some really good parts for choreography. I think they're overall entertaining. Those would be on my list.
Those are all so good, especially Bright Star as
Yeah.
being underrated. Like, are you kidding me? Come on.
So good. I can't believe it didn't last long on Broadway. It's a show that I think has everything. It'll make you smile, it'll make you laugh, it'll make you cry. It has huge romance. I just feel like it has something for everyone, and it has such good songs. And so yeah, I know. I love it.
The only one I really have to add to that list, which it isn't necessarily well, when we talk about overrated, you'll see why I'm bringing this up, but like it In the Heights is phenomenal. I love it. I know it was really well received, but I don't think that people even appreciate just how good it was. Like I love
Yeah.
Into the Heights. Um, I just think it's phenomenal, and I think like when we talk about Lin-Manuel, we're talking about Hamilton more, and of course that's more recent and everything like that. But I just think In the Heights was
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
this. I love In the Heights.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get out the let's get the knives out. Let's talk about Overrated. You can all hate us. We want your mean comments in the comments section.
Oh,
Uh, all right. I have The Band's Visit. I thought it was really boring. I didn't think any of the songs were that memorable. Omar Sharif was really the only one that I liked. I've seen the movie. I like the movie. The movie's a slow burn, so I get it. It's not going to be like fast paced, but I don't know. I just didn't feel like it had really any narrative arc. It didn't have any character. Like I was just completely unmoved by it. And so yeah, there's that. Yeah. So then I have Matilda. I think it's a cute show, but I think it's way too long. I think the escapologist section should be completely axed from it. It does nothing. It adds nothing to the story. I have Into the Woods, of course. I get it. I get why people like the subversion. I don't like the subversion. I would rather just be the fairy tales. To me, it just annoys me. Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder. I've seen it so many times, and I have seen this show so many times, and I could not tell you a single song. Not one. It should not be a musical. It should just be a straight play, a straight comedy. The music does almost nothing. If you get a good dice with, it's watchable. It's just not that great. And then shocking is I thought 6 was overrated. I just did not think it was that great. I thought it was like, that's it? What? That's the show? Like it has no story. It like the songs are very like generic teeny bopper. Like I don't know. I just did not think it was anything special, and people just love it. And I don't get it. I don't
well,
get it.
for 6, I like 6, but if we're talking about overrated, I definitely think it's overrated. Like I don't think it lives up to the hype. Like I love watching it's almost, it's like going to a concert. Like
Yeah, it's like going to a karaoke bar and just like, oh, those are fun. I enjoyed it. But like when you're paying the big bucks and it's only 90 minutes, no intermission, I don't know. Just there's no sets, there's no story, there's no like what?
and I do think for me, just even for a musical, I'm so much more story and character driven than
Yeah.
even music. And some people aren't, and that's fine too. Like that's the beauty of musical theater. But yeah, I think it's hard to like find the thread. And it really is just them like performing, which is great. And I think it's a great gateway for people who might not want to sit through a 3-hour production of Les Mis or
That's a
like,
good point. That's fair. Yeah.
but I agree with you. I do think it is um with all the hype surrounding it. It's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, no, I think it's good.
Like to me, 6 feels like a Vegas show that you do in between your gambling. You know? Like it's not like a real musical. It's like
Yeah, like
because they
well,
have those all over Vegas. Like they're usually about 90 minutes and there you come in and then you go you go
it's
cable again.
flashy, it's
Yeah.
fun. Yeah, and so talented, like so talented.
Sure.
But I think there's not enough for me in that either. That
Yeah.
is
So what about you?
okay.
What do you think?
So the uh, and look, I think it's Hamilton. It's Hamilton, but let me say that. Let me say
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
I There's so much I love about Hamilton. I think the songs are great. I think Lin-Manuel is a genius. I think that I'm really glad that the story itself was almost giving a way for people of color to reclaim history. Like
Yeah.
good. Amazing, 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 amazing. Like I don't need to see any more about the founding fathers. Like I'm a little bit like I would rather like the way within the Heights. I love getting to see that story. And
Yeah.
I'm a little bit like I don't care about Hamilton. I want to know about like the story of the slaves that they kept. Like I want to know like that journey is
Yeah.
more interesting and compelling to me than our founding fathers. And I get everything about it, how it's so it is so completely original. It's so interesting, but I guess to me, it just doesn't do it for me on that level. And I want more from the women in it. I do prefer shows that for me are a little bit more female led. I get why people love it. Again, he's a genius. I prefer In the Heights. I think the songs are great. There's a lot of bops, but I think it's very interesting. It's just like when anything gets so much positive attention, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, no, Hamilton's great, but like also all these other shows are too. And it's
Right.
like,
Yeah. When you see like Bright Star and other and Waitress and different shows getting that were sort of not as that probably would have won, best 20 in that, but it was just everything was all about Hamilton. Yeah, no, I get it. And like I guess what musical can live up to Hamilton hype? I mean, when it's winning the Pulitzer Prize, when it's like, I mean, it's pretty tough to like live up to that kind of like, this thing's going to change your life. This is going to, like, that's a lot of expectation putting on any show. But yeah, no, I get it. I do. I get it. And my dad, when we went inside, he was kind of like, what? Like that. He wasn't that thrilled with it. So.
well, you know what it is? And I shouldn't even be thinking about Hamilton. It's less about Hamilton itself and more about the hype and the fervor around it.
Yeah, I
People
get
who
it.
realize that theater existed before. And you and I are like, yeah, there's lots of stuff.
Yeah.
Come see it.
That's kind of how I felt about La La Land. I was like, and people acting like it's brought back the musical. And I'm like, musicals been being made for like, there were literally multiple ones made that same year. Like, stop. Like,
Yeah.
but it was a perfectly on the same breath. It was like a perfectly fine movie. Like, I enjoyed it. It wasn't a bad movie, but it was just like people were acting like this was like a revolutionary work of art, and I'm just kind of like, I don't know. So
Yeah. You're exactly right. Like, I think that's a really good comparison. I also think there's something about it, like La La Land, Hamilton, it was able to cut through the noise.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so good on you guys, but everyone who's liking that, please continue to stay here. There's more. There's more.
Right. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, that's a very good way to put it. All right. Last, I have our rapid fire little questions that we're doing. So we can both answer. You can answer whatever. So first is what is the best ice cream flavor?
Mint chocolate chip.
Okay, for me, I'd probably say Rocky Road.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. And then what is your favorite color?
Pink.
Purple for me. What is your favorite cast recording?
Oh, I'm gonna go with Wicked. You?
Oh, that's a very good one. I would probably say, if it counts, that 10th anniversary Les Mis concert, that was unforgettable. But if that doesn't count, then I would actually probably say the Aida cast recording, Heather Heatley, Adam Pascal. Yeah, really great.
Honestly,
yeah. Yeah, so good. Okay. What is your go-to date night food?
Thai food.
Oh, it's a good choice. Yeah. I think for a date, I do have to say sushi because it's so dainty and I'm not gonna spill on me, which is always a concern. Yes.
People think like a salad is dainty, but I'm like, no, I get stuff caught in my teeth.
Yeah. What is your favorite current Broadway show that's on right now? I guess you answer in maybe Notebook.
I think because I'm just like really obsessed with Notebook right now. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I'm trying to think I'm forgetting. Once Upon a Mattress is my favorite. Yeah, I love Once Upon a Mattress. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, so we have some. Let me see. All right, so this is either or. Okay. Mamma Mia or Jersey Boys.
Mamma Mia.
Okay, I haven't actually seen. I'm actually seeing Jersey Boys for the first time tonight, so I'll let you know. But
okay, let me know what.
Yeah, but for now, Mamma Mia. Wicked or The Lion King?
Wicked.
I think I would probably say The Lion King, but I do love both. Annie or Matilda?
Annie.
Yeah, same. Into the Woods or Company?
Into the Woods.
Company. Three. Phantom or Joseph?
Joseph.
Phantom for me. Hairspray or Hamilton?
Hairspray.
Same. Chicago or Cabaret?
Cabaret.
Same. The Music Man or Anna Get Your Gun?
Anna Get Your Gun.
I would say The Music Man, but I do love both. Okay, last one. Les Miserables or Sweeney Todd?
Les Mis.
Yeah, same. Okay, very good. And then the last bunch is which do you like better, dogs or cats?
Cats.
I would say dogs just because I'm allergic to cats.
Yeah, so you can't.
Yeah. Beaches or mountains?
Mountains.
Beaches for me, even though I live near mountains. You always like what you don't have, right?
Yeah.
What's your favorite holiday to celebrate?
Halloween or Christmas.
Yeah, same.
I'll be with you on Halloween this year.
Yeah, I know. It'll be so fun. And then I would say my birthday would be my other one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be my other one. Last question. What is your favorite movie musical?
Oh, favorite movie musical. You know, I'm actually gonna say, I think it's The Sound of Music.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that or The Little Mermaid or Beauty and the Beast, if we're going animated, one of those three. But yeah, The Sound of Music, if we're doing live action, is my favorite as well. Yeah. And it's one of the only ones that really elevates above the stage.
Yes.
It's way better than the stage, in my opinion.
It was so rare.
Yeah, it's very rare, very rare. So there we go. We did it. Hope you all have enjoyed this get to know you episode. We certainly enjoyed doing it. And let us know your answers to all these questions. We'd love to hear that in the comments or in your own posts. Just tag us on Stage Blog. We'd love to hear your answers. And Jax, where can people find you?
Jacklyn Collier on Instagram.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes, and at rachelsreviewstheater.com. YouTube, I'm all over the place, so just make sure you follow me. And yeah, just check out all of our great content on Stage Blog Theater Podcast. And thanks so much, everybody. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
Bye.